story doesn't begin in the lands between. It begins in the cosmos, far away, with an outer god called the Greater Will. There are a lot of outer gods mentioned in Elden Ring. You can think of these kind of like the Great Ones of Bloodborne. They're distant beings, they're all-powerful, and they're quite unknowable by design. But many of these outer gods want to make their presence felt in the world. The Greater Will, maybe most of all. To this end, it sent a golden star hurtling towards the lands between.
I still want to
The
play
Elden
this game.
Star's incantation tells us that this golden star was bearing a beast, an Elden beast. The Elden remember.
I haven't really played like a lot of FromSoft games. I played I think it was Demon Souls or Dark Souls, I'm not really sure, over someone's house once. And we were over there, a bunch of people, and we were intoxicated. And he started playing like I want to say it was Demon Souls. And I don't know how many or which one. He just put one on, and he started playing it. And he was like, "Does anybody else want to play?" And no one said that. I was like, "I'll play it." So I had to sit there playing it. And I have Bloodborne, which I was planning on doing a playthrough. I played that game for like I think an hour, maybe two. And then I started to say, I'm gonna do a playthrough if I remember, I got it for free. Well, free on PlayStation Plus. And I said, well, because I was like, I'll play. I wanted to play this. I heard it was a good game. It's very difficult, but I don't really play games because they're extremely difficult. But I was like, I heard that it's still a fun game. And I remember, I think it was a werewolf or some shit to be in that game. Like the first enemy killed me almost instantly. I was like, okay, I heard that the game was difficult. And then I ended up beating it the second time around. I was just playing the game. The game is a bit like just dreary and everything kind of looks the same. But I was like, I was still giving it a chance, and I was like, I kind of want to play through it. So I also want to play through this game, Elden Ring, because I heard it was. Didn't it win like Game of the Year recently? I think. I want to play through this. I haven't bought it because I was planning on buying it whenever I got a PlayStation 5. I don't know when that is. I'm a very cheap person. Like when my PlayStation 4 still works. The only time I get a new system is when the old system breaks. But I was thinking about breaking my rule of that and getting a PlayStation 5. But I don't know. We'll see about that. I keep saying I'm getting them by invitation. Every time I've been to Walmart, not to get them, but I just go over there. They're sold out where I'm at. So I'm like, fuck it. But yeah, we'll see.
Prince calls it a vassal beast of the Greater Will. If you didn't know, a vassal is someone who holds land on behalf of their overlord. Obviously, this is fitting in this case, because the Elden Beast occupied the lands between on behalf of the Greater Will, and was a living incarnation of the concept of order. As such, this beast would later become the Elden Ring. The Elden Ring itself is made up of runes of power, some great, some small, that together represent a sort of logic for the world to follow. Thus, the Elden Ring represents order. The true nature of this order is a subject of constant debate and research undergone by fundamentalists. But two of the key fundamentals are the laws of causality and regression. You can think of the law of causality as cause and effect, where actions have consequences, and those consequences are new causes that branch out into infinity. These are the relationships between things. Then there's the law of regression that states that all things eternally yearn to converge and return to their roots. Fittingly, then, the Elden Ring is housed within the Erd Tree, which towers over the lands between.
Again, definitely.
It's very important to stress that life in the lands between did not begin with the Erd Tree, the Elden Ring, or the Elden Beast. No, the lands between were occupied well before the Greater Will.
Still got a bunch of creepy ass
There were other
monsters.
beings here. There were other factions here. There were other gods here. And there was even another great tree here before the Erd Tree. And this is where a huge twist regarding the Erd Tree comes in. So there are incantations in the game called aspects of the crucible. According to their descriptions, these are manifestations of the Erd Tree's primal vital energies. And I quote, "They are an aspect of the primordial crucible where all life was once blended together." But how could all life be blended together in the Erd Tree if the Erd Tree appeared after life existed? Well, there can only be one answer, right? That the Erd Tree is a parasite, and it took over a tree that existed here before. This ancient tree was called the Great Tree. So the Great Tree was almost certainly the location of this primordial crucible, and it must have been a very powerful primordial force for the Greater Will to have commandeered. It might even be the reason the Lands Between is important to the Greater Will in the first place. It also explains why spells and enemies related to the Great Tree's crucible would eventually be looked down upon. For example, the Knot Talisman is fashioned from a knotted vestige of the crucible, and it was considered a signifier of the divine in ancient times, but is now increasingly disdained as an impurity as civilization has advanced. Enemies related to the crucible are the Omen, the Misbegotten, and the Crucible Knights, and all three of them would be shunned, enslaved, or imprisoned. Those who speak for the Erd Tree don't want you to know its roots, so to speak. According to the spell protection of the Erd Tree, in the beginning everything was in opposition to the Erd Tree, but through countless victories in war, it became the embodiment of order.
In Marika's own words, the Erd Tree governs all. The choice is thine. Become one with the order, or divest thyself of it, to wallow at the fringes, a powerless upstart.
But the Greater Will needed more than a big tree. It needed loyal agents in the Lands Between. To this end, it has the Two Fingers, who are its envoys. The Two Fingers heirloom has a weird picture of them, but it reads, "Of course, fingers cannot speak, yet these are eloquent. Persistently they wriggle, spelling out mysteries in the air. Thus did we gain the words of our faith." These words are interpreted by the finger readers. These are the undying old crones that you would have found throughout the Lands Between. They pass down the wisdom of the Two Fingers, or at least they used to.
Your fingers, please, your
fingers. They're bigger than I thought they were.
I can read
compared
them.
To your character.
Most of them appear to have lost their purpose, and they're desperate to read your fingers and tell you annoying riddles, since their two fingers are likely dead. And yes, of course, there are multiple sets of Two Fingers. You would have found their corpses on the tops of the divine towers. Atop these towers, you loot the fingers in order to activate the true power of a great rune. Specifically though, you are giving benediction back to your great rune. You're taking a blessing back from the two dead fingers, essentially. This is just one of many blessings that the Two Fingers can bestow, and my point is kind of that the Two Fingers clearly have more than just influence. They have real power on some level. The Greater Will needs these powerful envoys and agents because, while it's obviously incredibly powerful, it does seem limited by a few things. First is space. The Greater Will didn't come to the Lands Between itself, it sent an Elden beast to do its bidding instead. Second is time. There is a moment later in the game where your pair of Two Fingers goes still because they're forced to commune with the Greater Will for guidance.
When they are finished, the fingers will again offer their guidance. But thousands, if not tens of thousands, of moons must first pass.
Lord, they're
no
dying.
matter for me. But you, how will you ever manage to wait?
So the Greater Will needs a physical manifestation of order. It needs envoys to convey its will, but what it also needs is a god. Introducing Marika the Eternal. I have this utterly enormous mind map of Elden Ring's lore, and there's a reason she's at the center. She's essentially the equivalent of Gwyn from Dark Souls, except unlike Gwyn, Marika didn't just crawl out of the dark and find power. To an extent, it seems like she earned it. We don't know much about her origins, except that she is of the Numen race, which is actually an origin that you can choose in the character selection screen. Numen come from outside the lands between, and are supposed descendants of denizens of another world, long-lived but seldom born. At some point, Marika was chosen as an Empyrean. What is an Empyrean? Well, an Empyrean is a being chosen by the Fingers as a candidate for godhood. As an Empyrean, Marika received the aid of a shadow to do her bidding. So what is a shadow? Well, it's a wolf, shadowbound to its Empyrean by the two Fingers. Lunar Princess Rani is another example of an Empyrean with a shadowbound beast.
Oh, she's an
You would have
Empyrean?
met Blythe. These
I'm not seeing
creatures
her on
are
the
the
advertisement.
Empyrean's very own shadow. They are completely
So,
loyal to their needs and, by
werewolf?
definition, incapable of treachery. Marika's shadow was a beast called Malakath. Every Empyrean uses their shadow in different ways, but Marika's sole need of her shadow was as a vessel to lock away destined death. So what is destined death? Well, according to Enya, it's the rune of death.
The rune of death goes by two names. The other is destined death.
We mentioned earlier that the Elden Ring is made up of runes, and at some point, maybe when she was chosen as a god, Marika plucked the rune of death from the Elden Ring. She gave the rune of death to Malakath, her totally loyal shadow, who bore a black blade imbued with this rune. It's kind of genius, really. In a single act, she removed the concept of death from the lands between, while also commanding total control of death through her shadow, who could deliver it at her whim. Now, some of you might be asking, if death is removed from the lands between, how come I can kill this dog? First off, shame on you.
There's a dog.
Second, from a lore point of view, that dog isn't really dead. It's simply in the process of its spirit, or its soul, returning to the Erd Tree. Catacomb dungeons, for example, are specifically constructed near the roots of the Great Tree for this reason, so that the Erd Tree can reabsorb
They
their ashes
death.
back into
It's
it.
not the end.
This process replaced
It's
the
more of
concept
a
of the death
stepping
that you
off
were
point.
destined to have. But this random spirit outside of a catacomb dungeon says it best.
This guy's ghost lazy. Sinners.
As another example of this theory, when you kill a major boss, you receive a remembrance of them. These are spirits, and they are hewn into the Erd Tree. In this way, thanks to the Erd Tree's grace, their spirits are immortalized, in a sense. This new form of death also explains what's happening when you summon spirits.
From ash and return to the Erd Tree.
However, some spirits never return to the Erd Tree, and they rise within death as corpses or skeletons instead.
Oh, that sounds great.
So this was the new order, and it's important to stress that it was in this moment, when the rune of death was removed, when destined death was taken, this is when order became the Golden Order.
The forbidden shadow plucked from the Golden Order upon its creation.
Specifically, this was Marika's Golden Order. So not only did she become a god and a vessel for the Elden Ring, she became renowned as Marika the Eternal for her removal of destined death. It was a huge part of her character and her reign as well. However, Marika had more than just death to conquer. She had wars to fight, as the world was occupied by many forces that could threaten her Golden Order. There was war with the Stormlord, who likely ruled over Stormvale, and there was a war with the Giants, who were masters of a flame that could burn the Erd Tree. There was war with the ancient dragons, who incidentally had stones that could twist time and thus slay a god. And finally, there was war brewing with the Carrion royalty, who had previously obeyed laws which contravened the Golden Order. Thus, sort of similar to how the Greater Will needed an Empyrean to enforce its will,
hell is going on here?
Marika herself needed someone to wage war. So, there was to
Dragons
be a
flying around a
husband, a
tornado
consort, an Elden Lord.
in the middle of it.
The man chosen was Horalu, a ferocious warrior who became known as the Lord of the Battlefield. His crown was warranted with strength, and while it was for this strength that Marika married him, he was also required to take a vow to conduct himself as a lord. To suppress the ceaseless lust for battle that raged within, Horulu took the beast regent Sarosh upon his back. You'll notice this is another example of a beast being given for the purpose of serving order. Thus, in this moment, he went from being Horulu, warrior, to Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, consort to Queen Marika, and a certified demigod.
Oh no, he looks cool.
Godfrey
right
and
there.
Marika had 3 demigod children together. There was Godwyn the Golden, who you saw being killed in the opening trailer, and there were also the reviled Omen twins, Morgoth, who guards the Erd Tree, and Mohg, who became Lord of Blood. You might think that Godric was another demigod child, but he actually wasn't. Instead, he was probably descended from Godwyn. Anyway, we'll talk about the demigods more in detail in another video, so subscribe for that. But for now, just know that Godfrey and his offspring were the first demigods, henceforth known as the Golden Lineage. In his wars, Godfrey led his 16 Crucible Knights into battle, who were named so for they fought with the primordial powers of the Erd Tree. Their incantations were aspects of the Crucible
they were just
itself,
like the game was hard.
they likely fought giants, dragons,
appeal
the
of-
Stormlord, and more to usher in their age, the age of
Only
the Erd
real gamers
In
play this
Marika's
game.
own words, hark, brave warriors. Hark, my lord Godfrey. We commend your deeds. Guidance hath delivered ye through each ordeal to the place ye stand. Put the giants to the
This
sword
game looks
and
really
confine the
beautiful,
flame
though.
atop the mound.
Just from these shots.
Let a new epoch begin, an epoch glistening with life. Brandish the Elden Ring for the age of the Erd Tree.
The Erd Tree would go on to be largely seen as a blessing for all of those in the lands between, especially those close to it in Leyndell, the capital city of the Erd Tree. The tree bestowed blessings. For example, the dew that dropped from its branches were like jewels. It loomed overhead as a constant reminder of order, and its roots reached far and wide, relieving many of the burden of death. In fact, Erd Tree burial was one of the highest honors a hero could receive. One by one, the previous factions of the world fell. The giants were put to the sword, and their fell god was killed by Marika herself. The ancient dragons broke down the walls of Leyndell, but met fierce retaliation. However, I think the House of the Erd Tree encountered the most trouble against the land to their southwest, Liurnia. Here, the House of the Moon repelled their offensives time and time again, and I mean that literally, because there was not just one but 2 wars fought here, and in both of these, there was no victory for the Golden nor for the Moon. And I suspect it was probably because of these lobsters. These damn things can snipe you from like a mile away, and it's bullshit. Actually, it was probably because of the Carrier Knights, who, according to their weapons, were able to wield sorcerer's
armor.
battle skills, and despite numbering fewer than 20, this power made them a match for even the champions of gold in battle. These enchanted knights were anointed by the Lunar Queen, a young astrologer who went on to establish the House of Caria as royalty in this land. With her bewitching lunar magic, she won over the Academy of Raya Lucaria, where glintstone sorcery was studied, and united
Dang, your
the
ass
Carian
kicked.
royal family and the learned scholars of Raya Lucaria defended their home
They just
from the
standing
golden aggressors. At the head of this great golden army was Radagon.
These
Lord
turtles.
Radagon was a great champion, possessed of
tortoises.
flowing red locks. He came to these lands at the head of a great golden host. When he met Lady Rennala in battle,
These 2 champions clashed, fell in love, and joined their houses.
Radagon once
Tale is
cleansed
old as
himself with celestial dew, repented his
Ain't that the
territorial
Pope
aggressions,
hat you got on
and
his head?
swore his love to Rennala. The order of the Erd Tree and the fate of the moon were conjoined, and all the wounds of war forgiven.
You might think it's strange that the Greater Will would permit this union, but it's not too odd, all things considered. As with most From Software games, sorcery and faith are just 2 sides of the same coin, and both of these powers stem from the cosmos. Radagon and Rennala were known to have 3 children together. Lunar Princess Rani, who inherited her mother's propensity for lunar magic, Radahn, who took after his father Radagon and would go on to master gravitational magic, and Rykard, who pioneered new hex sorceries and would go on to feed himself to a great serpent. It follows that at some point after this, Marika began to harbor doubts about the Golden Order that she had had a hand in creating.
In Marika's own words, I declare mine intent to search the depths of the Golden Order through understanding of the proper way. Our faith, our grace is increased. Those blissful early days of blind belief are long past. My comrades, why must ye falter?
And it's at this point that we should talk about Marika's motivations, her character. This is surely going to be one of those huge points of debate in the coming years, but for now, my working theory is that she wanted to discover the truth behind order and the truth behind the greater will, and she believed that bonds had to be broken so that they could be better understood. She believed that there was great meaning to be found in hardship.
Queen Marika has high hopes for us, that we continue to struggle.
There's always
Unto
something
eternity.
dead in the foreground.
For Lord Godfrey, his struggle ended at the end of his campaigns. According to his armor, he led the war against the giants, faced the Storm Lord alone, and then there came a moment when his last worthy enemy fell, and it was then, as the story is told, that the hue of Lord Godfrey's eyes faded. In truth, he was robbed of his grace. Then Marika sent him away.
My lord, and thy warriors, I divest each of thee of thy grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between. Ye will wage war in a land afar, where ye will live and die.
This became known as the Long March of the Tarnished, as Godfrey and his tarnished descendants walked away from the lands between. But Queen Marika absolutely had a plan here, that Lord Godfrey and his descendants would one day return stronger, having struggled outside of grace.
Then, after thy death, I will give back what I once claimed, return to the lands between, wage war, and brandish the Elden ring, grow strong in the face of death. Warriors of my lord, Lord Godfrey.
Soon after, she found a new husband. Either that or a new husband was found for her.
When Godfrey, first Elden Lord, was hounded from the lands between, Radagon left Rennala to return to the Erdtree capital, becoming Queen Marika's second husband and king consort, taking the title of Second Elden Lord. The mystery endures to this day as to why Lord Radagon would cast Lady Rennala aside, and moreover, why a mere champion would be chosen for the seat of Elden Lord.
Whatever the case, as a part of this union, Radagon's prior 3 children with Rennala became demigod stepchildren, granted grace thanks to their new family tree. Rennala was broken by this, and so was her country, Liurnia. The Queen's set reads, when Rennala, head of both the Academy of Raya Lucaria and the Carian royal family, lost her husband Radagon, her heart went along with him, and then those at the Academy realized that Rennala was no champion after all. In the wake of Radagon's betrayal and Rennala's poor judgment, Liurnia struggled with civil war, with the Academy of Raya Lucaria on one side and the Carian royals on the other. And it's here, during the age of the Erdtree, that Lunar Princess Rani, daughter of Rennala and Radagon, stole a fragment of the Rune of Death.
It happened during the golden age of the Erdtree, long before the shattering of the Elden Ring.
Oh shit, Deadites.
Someone stole a fragment of the Rune of
Death
Death from
Eaters.
Malekith, the Black Blade.
As mentioned previously, Malekith was Marika's shadow, and he had sealed destined death in a black blade. Then a fragment, only a fragment, of this Rune of Death was stolen. And once this happened, Malekith went a step further in protecting destined death. He bound the blade within his own flesh, such that none might rob death ever again. It was too late, however. This fragment of the Rune of Death was used immediately, that night, to kill a demigod,
What was the
Marika's
point?
own son, Godwyn the Golden.
That was the first recorded death of a demigod in all history, and it became the catalyst. Soon, the Elden Ring was smashed, and thus sprang forth the war known as the Shattering.
Now, there is a lot of really credible evidence that Marika was behind this plot to have a fragment of the Rune of Death stolen. There's also a ton of evidence that Marika is behind the entirety of your tarnished quest, but we'll talk about that in another video. For now, all you really need to know, in terms of the timeline at least, is this. After the marriage of Marika and Radagon, and after a fragment of the Rune of Death was stolen, Marika went on to shatter the Elden Ring, and Radagon attempted to repair it, to no avail. The Elden Ring had been broken into runes, some great and some small.
You know, it's said that Lord Radagon harbored a secret. A famed sculptor of the Erdtree capital was once summoned to render Lord Radagon's likeness in giant stature, when he glimpsed the skeleton in Radagon's closet. And as such, it's said the great statue harbors his secret too.
Of course, the huge twist in Elden Ring is that Radagon is Marika, or depending on what you believe, he became her, for she knew it was going to happen.
In Marika's own words, O
Okay.
Radagon,
Interesting.
Leal Hound of the Golden Order, thou art yet to become me.
Is that M. Night Shyamalan?
Thou art yet to become a god. Let us be shattered, both. Mine other self.
You can tell when From Software is keeping something a little bit open-ended, and of everything in Elden Ring's lore, this will also go on to be one of the biggest unknowns as we move forward. For example, the wording, thou art yet to become me, reinforces that Marika and Radagon were two separate entities before the Shattering. However, in contrast, there is also evidence that Radagon was always part of Marika. For example, Enya says that
The demigods are each and all the direct offspring of Queen Marika.
but how can this be if Radagon married Rennala and had those demigod children? The only way that makes sense is if Radagon was always Marika and he just went over there to seduce
Well, of
Rennala
course.
long ago.
That's the only way it makes sense.
I'll present more concrete theories in the future, but on this matter, the most important thing is, what do you think? While you can figure out a ton of Elden Ring's story, not all of it is open to interpretation. Certain things are, and this is one of them. And your interpretation
this
is a
dude,
big
he
part
look
of what
fucked
makes this
up.
story special.
Probably one
At
of
any
the
rate,
hardest
the
bosses
union
to
of Radagon
to
and
fight in the game.
Marika seems to be a union of two fundamental opposing laws of the Golden Order. We mentioned these laws earlier, actually. There's the law of causality, and Marika is an agent of cause and effect. And there's the law of regression, as Radagon is a character who aspires to be complete and regress together. So I have a theory that forcing these two beings that represent these concepts together would have corrected Marika's deviance. But even so, she was imprisoned in the Erdtree for the crime of the Shattering.
Marika's trespass demanded a heavy sentence. But even in shackles, she remains a god and the vision's vessel.
The conjoined Radagon and Marika even had two demigod children of their own, Miquella and Millennia. These two children were born afflicted. Miquella was cursed with eternal childhood, and Millennia harbored
well,
a
that
horrific
sucks.
rot within. Even so, these two children were both chosen as Empyreans. They were immensely sacred beings, and eligible to inherit godhood from the Greater Will. Perhaps the Greater Will was just desperate to find a worthy successor, and indeed in the Shattering War to come, many would try to claim the shards of the Elden Ring, and they would try to take the throne, including, of course, the Tarnished, who returned from their long march at long last, which we'll talk about in the next main lore video. I should probably also mention here that if you become a patron, you'll see upcoming lore videos early, as that's one of the rewards you get if you pledge to the $3 tier. And if you think my channel really adds a lot of value to the Souls games for you to the point where you pledge $20, then in this new tier, you'll receive a new mug every 3 months that has a unique design on it, to do with the games by From Software. There are 4 to collect. The first one you'll get is inspired by Dark Souls, then Elden Ring, then Sekiro, and finally Bloodborne. And they all have fantastic art that I worked on with an amazing artist named Chu. But anyway, I figured this is the right place to end this video because the information
That's
here
another game I want to
is
play.
going to be
Sekiro.
overwhelming. I bet it probably was too overwhelming, you know? It took me ages to commit these names and the relationships they had with other characters to memory, so I hope you guys are doing alright. One thing that helped me a lot was that we designed an enormous mind map with pretty much all of Elden Ring's lore, all of its item descriptions, all of its dialogues, all of the relationships between characters that we can think of. We added all of this together and it helped a ton in learning about the story and visualizing it all. And one day I will make this asset available to you all because I think after doing it, I think this is the quintessential way to piece together the story, and I think giving you guys this asset eventually will make that accessible for people. So I'm really excited about that. I want to thank Absa and Zard for accepting the paid
how many
task of
people
helping me
will
put
want
all the
that,
raw data into
like,
this
to
mind
really
map
know
so
that, 'cause
that I could
it
better
seems like a
understand
lot of people
everything.
wanna
I want to thank Paragod
have
for
their
fulfilling
own
all of my footage
experience with
requests and creating so many cinematic
I mean, but
scenes
it's still
for this video
it's still a
and for you all
story.
to enjoy.
It's still a
And
narrative.
last of all, want
So
to
it's
thank
not like,
John
oh,
Devlin,
you just,
the incredible thumbnail.
it don't
And
really
of course,
matter.
thank you
it's
for
all
watching.
about how you
There are some
play it. and
really exciting things ahead,
it's your own
and
story.
I actually believe this might be the best story that From Software have ever put together. I just think not only are there so many amazing item descriptions, but so many of them are impactful. There are so many moments where you piece together the story and have like a eureka moment, and I'm enjoying it so much. But now I'm gonna go and play the game a little bit because I've been editing this video for too long. So, see you next time.
It's very interesting because it's like anytime if I watch anything or read about any lore, I want it, especially if I didn't get, like, he was going over a lot. He even said, this is probably going to be a lot. And he was right, especially if you don't know anything. If I had played the game, that'd be one thing. But like, he was, those names and shit, I was like, but I was trying to follow him, like, it's kind of late. Or, well, I guess is it Friday? Is it Friday the 13th? It's like midnight right now. I saw it the 13th. Said, yeah, it is Friday. Huh. Friday the 13th. Happy Friday the 13th, folks. But yeah, but this, anytime anything that makes me more curious, makes me want to play it more. And like I said, I already want to play. And then he mentioned Sakura, which is another game I want to play, but I heard good things about. I saw it was finally on sale. I think for the holidays, but I didn't get it. Excuse me, I didn't get it. It was a bunch of stuff on sale that I was planning on getting, and then I just didn't get it. And I was like, when am I gonna play that? I still got a bunch of stuff I want to play on either recording or streaming. I haven't played anything, even in my personal time. I just haven't played games. I haven't played a video game. Getting old, I guess. Happens, you get old. Just don't do things anymore that you did in your youth. But I'm gonna get back into it. I still got a bunch of games I bought that I didn't play. I bought specifically to play on a channel, and I still fucking played it. Maybe because I want to stream it, and that might be because recording is one thing, but you're talking about streaming it. It's a lot more involved in that. But this was interesting. He went into great detail. Like I give it to when people go into detail about anything, YouTube breaking down shit like the SCP stuff, lore games like this, especially when it's like, everybody has like a different I don't want to say interpretation, but I guess different experience when they play the game themselves. So no one kind of has the exact same experience, or there are multiple different endings and stuff. I'm not sure if this game has multiple different endings, but there you know, games that do that just to add replayability, you know. And I've heard people say that about Elden Ring. Like, oh, you can play. The experience is very different. Going through, and it's so much different than, you know, the standard game is now. So it's kind of like, it's a breath of fresh air for a lot of people, you know. I'm a very simple guy, so we'll see. I will eventually get. I might just go ahead and get it on PlayStation. But then, like I said, I wanted to play Bloodborne. I think I have a Souls game. I got Bloodborne. That's a Souls game, but one of those, the ones that actually have soul in the name. I think of Demon Souls or Dark Souls. I feel like it was another one, either that I bought because it was on sale, or it was on the PlayStation. It was one of the PlayStation Plus monthly games. I have to look because I don't download because I don't have enough space to download. Maybe I might buy another, but then my brother told me, because he bought, I think, a 14 terabyte hard drive, and it wasn't, you can't use them. Apparently you can't use any hard drive. I think it's over 11 terabytes or 10 or 11 terabytes. So I was like, well, good thing I didn't, because I was gonna buy one that was like about 14 to 15 terabytes. It's like, oh, I could put all my games on it. I'm glad I didn't do that. But then I do have another terabyte. It's like 9. Well, it said 10, but you know, you never get the whole thing. So it's like 9.45 terabytes, some shit, gigabytes, or whatever. It's never the whole thing. But so I could just take all that shit out there, put on that the 15 one, and then just use that. And then I also got a terabyte in my because I switched out the hard drive in my PlayStation when I bought it. I switched it out because I think it came with 500 gig. I think it was 500 gigs. I think, or maybe it was I don't remember. Maybe it was a lesser one. Was there a different? Now I'm forgetting. Was there a? Because I could have sworn there was like they had was it a 3 gig and a 5 gig, or 300 gigs, 500 gigs. I can't remember. And I just bought it. I said, I just do it since when I bought PlayStation 4. I just got that at the same time, because I had to end up having to go back and getting another one because it wasn't compatible with the one I had. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed my reaction. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you'll know if I upload new videos. Comment down below, share this video. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.